Let's make this intro short. I told you in one of my Cleona series where I incorporated the Pop Aurora Struck palette that I kind of feel inspired to do looks with this, because I then searched on my channel and on my other socials. I never did the full video with this. I only did the shorts with this palette. So I used it off camera a couple times but never filmed it. Today, you're getting 3 looks with this oldie but still goodie. And I think this is going to be the name of the series, Old But Not Forgotten or something like that, because I think we just need to pull out all the beautiful stuff that we have. New is always exciting, but honestly, when I filmed my Nomad Cosmetics Chamonix dupe palette, I didn't even look into this, but when I now look at this, I'm like, well, this is basically the Nomad winter palette. So if you want to pull out your winter pastels, maybe pull out your Pop Aurora Struck, because you already have these colors. Oh my god. And I don't want to ramble too much, so let's head into the looks. By the way, 3 you will get. 3 looks with this palette. You know, usually I just wing the looks, but this time, this picture here is my inspiration. Me, my husband, and a friend who's also a neighbor here, and I have cat hair everywhere. We every day basically go out for a walk with her and her dog. And when we walk there, there is a lot of like open fields and things. And we saw this when the sun was going down. It was like a good -2 degrees, and that was how the sky was looking. This blue, the icy tones in the sky, but then there's also this little bit of red and pink peeking through. And while these exact tones are not in the palette, I can probably achieve them with the purples and these icy tones. And then you see the green grass, the darker one, so a little bit of dark shades can be incorporated too. So I start with the shade Spiraling. I apply this above my crease and blend it up to the brows, my transition color. I then go into No Sleep. And that one I blend in my inner crease part up to the center. And then I tap into Journey, this super light blue. And I blend that one in the rest of the crease. And I also bring it to the lashes here and connect it with No Sleep. I tap now into Stormy Mud, and I use this to darken here outer V and outer crease. I take one of these flat straight brushes and I go into Orca. That one I press in my upper lash line. Glitter glues down, and now I go into Radio Waves. And I apply this on the outer third of my lid. Then I go into Comet Seeking. That one goes in the center. And now I go into Solar Vibes. And I use this to fill in the rest here. For the liner and the waterline, I forgot what I wanted to say. For the liner, I will be using the About Face Line Artist. And this is the shade Call Me Crazy. It's a turquoise. And I line my waterline with that, very surprisingly. I then go into Phenomenon, which is basically the same shade as the liner. And I use this directly on my lower lash line. And then I tap into Night Sky here in the corner. And I blend that out with the shade. So many choices for the inner corner highlight. My favorite so far from all the time that I used this palette was So Lit, but I want to do something else today, because remember that pinky sheen. So I go into Borealis and apply this as my inner corner highlight. It's more bluey than pink, but I think it still matches. And later on, I will be using Feeling Wavy here as my brow bone highlight. And here we have the first finished look. I don't know how much I nailed the photo. I think I'm missing a lot of the pink tones, but I do like the vibe, the like ice sky vibe in the evening. And on the lips, I just paired it with something very, very neutral. This is the Tom Ford Gloss Luxe in the shade Celestial. But now, let's head over to look number 2. For look number 2, I'm starting with the shade Bucket List. And I use this as my transition color. Next up, I go into Geomagnetic. And I use this to deepen my crease. And now I tap slightly into Due South, which isn't that easy because it's quite a powdery shade. And I use this on the outer V. I think you already guessed it that this look is going to be more cool toned neutral than colorful. I go now into Lunar Trippin', and I tap this on the outer half of my lid. And now I go into Dynamo and use this on the rest of my lid. Or is it Dynamo? Because in German it's Dynamo, so maybe it's pronounced a bit different. Honest with you, this is not what I expected from this shade, because in the pan it looks like a metallic shade or a glittery shade, and this is basically a sequin. So nearly all of the glitter just fell out everywhere, and all that is left is mainly a matte eyeshadow. This is really a bit disappointing. So I tap into Comet Seeking and I just carefully tap it on top here. It's not so much about the color, it's more about the shimmer. Waterline, I'm using Victoria Beckham, the Kajal liner in the shade Ash. It's a super, super dark gray. And I line the waterline with that. I now go into Due South again. And I press it right here on the lash line. I try not to smudge it too far down. I just want to set that line here. I now tap into Geomagnetic. And with that, I blend it out a tad, but not too far down, just slightly smoked. I go into High Latitude and I apply this as my inner corner highlight, smudge it a bit on the lower lash line and take it a bit into the crease. And here we have the finished look. I really like this. Again, I'm very, very disappointed by the shade Dynamo here. It just looks in the pan so much like sparkly, metallic, wet eyeshadow effect look in heaven, but it's actually just a matte with a lot of glitter that falls out. So I'm just in general not a big fan of these sequin shades, but there are good ones formulated, like the ABH ones are nice because they are visible, and some of the sequins in here are really nice, like Spiraling and Night Sky and Great Earth. They have this clear matte base, but they also have the light shimmer reflex and they do not fall out, while in the Dynamo shade it just fell down. I think I still did it nice. I think I did really nice, I don't know, like super dark night sky inspired look. I love that. And on the lips, to make it complete, I'm wearing the Enchanted Lip Sheer from Ritual the Fee in the shade Black Locust. And now let's move on to the last look of this video. Like I always say, time flies when you're having fun. We're already at the third look, and I want to focus on shades that I, the whole time when I used this palette, basically avoided. So these emeralds here, and I also haven't touched really into Midnight Sun, which is a nice purple shade. So I don't know if I can combine the emeralds with the purple, but I will start actually with the shade Phenomenon here. And that one I press directly here on my outer lid, and then I blend it out into the crease and a little bit, you know, smoke it out. I now go into Icelandic. And that one I start to blend in the center crease. Bring it inwards, but also outwards on top of the border of that Phenomenon shade. Now go into Night Sky. Surprisingly, one of my favorite sequins in general and in this palette, and I use this on the most outer part of my whole blend. I also go into Great Earth, and that one I apply on the inner crease part. I feel like there is something missing. My glitter glue is down, and I now tap into the shade In Orbit. In the pan, it appears like an emerald green with gold flecks, so I'm very excited how this is going to be looking here on the eye. So I tap this shade on the outer third of my lid. Gold does not show up very much, but I don't mind that actually. So now I can tap into Cosmic Ray, and that one I apply on the rest of my lid. The oil spill shades, they just have my heart. We now have quite a harsh line in the center of the lid. I just take a little bit more of Cosmic Ray, start to tap it out on the inner lid part, and then I just wiggle it here on that line. And there it is. The line is gone. It looks like it fades into the in orbit shade. But we move on to the eyes. Do you see this highlight? Do you see this glitch? Oh, it's the Dexter highlight from Lethal Cosmetics, and I used it today only once for a short that you hopefully have seen, and I am already, and I barely say this word, but I'm obsessed because I love glitchy highlights. I love glittery highlights, and this is glitchy glittery. So this is right up my friggin' alley. Of course, definitely not a highlight that I can wear with a super warmish red look maybe, but for this, so good. But now, moving on to the eye, I will be using Urban Decay Mainline that I really need to sharpen before I apply this. And I line my waterline with that. I now tap into Phenomenon and press this also directly here on the lower lash line. And I'm now adventurous. I go into Midnight Sun and I very lightly handed start to blend this on the lower lash line, starting here in the inner part. And then I bring it outwards. To smoke out the complete lash line, I take Night Skies again. And I use it slightly below everything and then just keep on blending. I would love to apply this highlight also in my inner corner. But I will stay here in this palette, and in all the times that I've used this palette, I just avoid it. I was looking for a word in English that I just completely forgot that says absichtlich, so on purpose. Oh god, I on purpose avoided the shade So Lit because this is definitely my favorite shimmer in this palette. And if I'm not mistaken, this is a Super Shock shadow. It feels super shocky. Yeah, I think it's a Super Shock shadow. It's really squishy. And this is such a beautiful ice blue, and whenever I used this palette in the past, off camera too, I always incorporated this. But for the looks, I wanted to branch out in the palette. But today, for the last look, definitely the shade So Lit here on my inner corner. Oh, this is sparkly, it's beautiful, and actually it catches the vibe of the highlight. Or is this a pressed glitter? I honestly cannot tell from the formulation because it either is a Super Shock or it is a pressed glitter with a high percentage of a binding component in there. And here we have the third and finished look. On the lips, I'm wearing the Lisa Eldridge Sculpt in shade Lip Pencil in 0N and applied the Insbaha Wild Flame All Moisturizing Matte Lipstick. I know, what a mouthful of a name, in the shade FM03 or Grey Brown, which you can get on Look Healthy store with 12% discount with my code ELLAGRAM. Yes, I know, shameless ad. So how do I now feel about this palette after 3 very dedicated looks? I just love it even more. So what can I tell you? If you are really thinking of, yeah, should I try ColourPop? Should I not? Their palettes are definitely, there are hit and misses in there. My first experiences with ColourPop, they were like, one palette was great and the other 2 ones were shit. The first one that I actually got was the Hogwarts palette, so the Back to Hogwarts collab. And I also got, I don't even know how they were called, but they were very much inspired by the Patrick Ta palette. So they had, I think, 8 shades of matte eyeshadows and then 2 cream shades in there. And there was a brown color story, like a warm brown, and then a more grayish one. And I had these 2. And the quality of these, absolute bullshit. Really bad. But the remaining ColourPop items that I have in my collection, including the Aurora Struck, they have a completely different formulation. I absolutely adore them, and I said it in my ranking that I did 2024 of my ColourPop palettes, that out of all the non-limited edition palettes, the permanent lines, Aurora Struck is definitely my favorite. While I do have to admit that a palette like Troublemaker, for example, with its mauvey cool tone palette, I prefer over this for the color story itself. But Aurora Struck makes just something very right that I criticize in most of ColourPop palettes, and that is the choice of hues that you get. This palette here has light, mid, and darks. A lot of other ColourPops only have light and mid. So my need for something to darken any eye look is fulfilled with this, which makes this then color story wise and choice wise much better than a lot of other ColourPop palettes, and that has nothing to do with the color story itself. You can create a palette with a lot of variation in the depth and hues, also with 12 pens, just saying. So while this is quite an old palette when you just do the math in beauty release time, I still think that this is a palette that we should just pull out, because let's be real. How many of you have Aurora Struck in their shelves but haven't touched it in a year or even more? Maybe you were on the hype train for this and you got it back then when everyone was raving about this, and then the wave just, it kind of went down and you just forgot about the palette. So in the series, as told, I hope in the intro, I want to pull out just palettes that are older but should not be forgotten, like the Aurora Struck. Let me know your thoughts down below on the series in general. Would you be interested in more of these? Of course, you don't know what other palettes in general I have. I mean, we are talking about 200 eyeshadow palettes, so you don't really know what other old ones I have, so you have to maybe trust me in what I choose. But what you can do is you can also make suggestions on maybe a color story that you would like to see, and then I can look if I have it in one of these older palettes. Thank you so much for joining. I hope you like this video. Make sure to subscribe to don't miss out any of the other cool videos, and I see you soon.